What's going on? Apple's down. Like, I mean, wait a second. M1, M2, but they're down like 46%. What's going on here, Dan?
Less channel to stuff, maybe, to keep their numbers strong?
Possibly.
Yeah, so I don't think it's any secret, Pat, that the PC space has been hard hit. We also have to remember the PC space had explosive growth when everybody went home and everybody had 1, 2, 3 more PCs, tablets, smartphones, devices. So, you know, on one side of every boom is a bust. And in silicon, when you watch the silicon wave, well, the devices have to follow. So when the device, you know, when you see the shipments from TSMC and Intel go down and AMD and everyone else, guess what? Those devices are going to follow. And so the most recent market share report that came out, the Q1 2023 market share report that came out from Canalys, basically said this market is in disarray. I mean, it is, Pat, it's kind of a disaster. 32.6% down across the board. But Pat, I mean, nothing looked worse than Apple falling nearly 50%, 45.5% drop. This is just incredible. What is the deal here? So, you know, we have M1, you have M2, like you said, you have all this demand for new devices, Pat, but is this an economic thing? I mean, Apple is the most expensive alternative to PC on a Mac. Is this a lack of business spending that's going on and companies have stopped spending? Was this Apple had a huge wave of end of year and Christmas selling through the holidays and basically just zeroed out in the next quarter? But just as a comparative basis, they dragged the average down somewhat substantially. I mean, HP led the pack with only a 24% negative annual growth, but we saw pretty consistent among the rest. It was around 30, meaning Asus, Dell, and Lenovo all around 30%. So all the other were sort of seemingly sustained about a 1/3 drop or a little bit less, while suddenly Apple fell way, way harder. Now, I gave all those different conditions. I would say I'm confident that it was a little bit of all of those factors. I think at the end of the year, Apple is a bit more of a retail phenomenon than other PC makers. They probably did see some pull forward of people who bought Macs for holiday presents. I think enterprises are spending less and being more frugal. So meaning when an enterprise maybe at one time was offering an option of a Mac for their employees, maybe they're considering not offering that option right now when a Mac might have an ASP of twice what the PCs that they would offer their employees cost. But these are, like I said, these are not hard truths. These are just my analysis of what likely happened, Pat. But here's the one thing I will say. I think we're going to have 1 or 2 more quarters of pretty difficult conditions. But I do think you'll have a cycle turn around again. New processors, faster applications, generative AI, Pat, AI on silicon, things that are going to need to be on these devices to optimize these workloads are going to require another wave of PC purchases. So I do think we'll come back from this. I think the long withstanding the PC is not really dead thing that you and I like to say is true, but we are in a gully. It's the gully at the outset of a amazing run up, and I think we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, overall, the PC market is still above where it was pre-pandemic, and the amount of PCs that were purchased to be able to work at home and then have, you know, one PC per person at home. So you could, you know, you stopped going to the movies, but you gamed more, you watched more movies, more Netflix on your notebook. And I think the market as a whole is going to be solid, particularly when you look at the enterprise market. I have some doubts over consumer. On consumer, my expectation is the growth is going to be driven by AI on the platform, right? We've seen chip makers, particularly Qualcomm. You look at what AMD and Intel are doing on the platform itself with Windows, right? That has, you know, an 93% market share versus Mac OS. Big thing is going to happen. And then on the enterprise side, I still believe that we have yet to come up with an optimal platform for this new hybrid work era, right? It's not just about what can I do at home that I did at work. How can I effectively go from work to home to work, being on the road and having an optimal experience where it's more like being there. I think the early moves on making the experiences are good, and they've really focused around improved cameras and improved audio capabilities. But I don't think we're nearly where we need to be just there. And this is going to sound, a little bit wackadoodle, but to be there, I think you need larger displays, you need higher resolution displays. Dare I say this is a potential for XR? I know, sounds crazy. You can't even talk about the metaverse and XR before being laughed out. But how am I going to feel like I'm in the same room with you, Daniel, on this tiny display and this grainy video and this terrible audio? It's just not going to happen. Our brains don't work like that. The other thing we need to do is have a lot of sensors on the system as well, to be able to secure this PC, whether it's inside the perimeter, outside the perimeter, not on a VPN or on my home router. So I think there's going to be a ton of growth in there. Let me hit the Apple thing. Apple absolutely fell on their face. And if you remember, 2 or 3 quarters ago, they were the darlings that had the highest growth, or the ones that sucked less than the Windows folks related to the decline. And everybody's like, this just shows the resurgence, baby. No, Apple stuffed the channel. Okay. No bones, black and white. I think their consumption through the channel is pretty good, particularly when you see deals, Daniel, $900 off a Mac. Okay. My entire career, I've never seen that aside from blowout, blowout at the very end when they didn't do a good job on doing that. I think net it shows that Apple is human, that Apple's not going to run up the score on the industry related to the PCs. Note of caution, Apple consumes most or all of the profits in the consumer PC space. I think the only exception will be some of the high-end gaming rigs. The Windows folks still have the dominant share of profit dollars in the enterprise, but make no mistake, Apple is gunning for that area, and they're willing to spend their 10th year of pounding their head against the wall, and they used M1 and M2 and the ARM architecture that has a great high degree of security to be able to roll those numbers up. And no longer is Apple an embarrassment in the enterprise. They're actually a formidable opponent who's willing to go another 10 years to go slowly perk up market share.